Here we go. Okay. I I look like I'm in a crypt.
You are.
I am. I tried to replace my camera and I failed.
That's okay. You still look good.
Ah, I guess that's better. Okay. All right. So episode 2 is called Not Women because it's not about women. Apparently, I was informed only moments before recording that we're not authorized to talk about women.
Not this week.
Not this week. I didn't ask why, but I guess is asking why we're not allowed to talk about women.
It's
To
like telling somebody to not think about a pink elephant.
yeah, it hasn't worked out well for me historically. Trying not to think about women or pink elephants. So
I have a suggestion for a topic.
okay,
Vision.
vision,
Vision.
and we're gonna pontificate on that off the dome.
I think vision is a theme that's prevalent in both of our lives. And I mean, for starters, we're both wearing glasses. So
True, but yours is much worse than mine. If we have to,
much worse.
yeah. So basically, I have superior vision.
And I can't see shit without my glasses.
Oh man, speaking of vision, I went skiing today. And I feel like when I'm reaching the end of my like limit, I don't know if it's dehydration or hunger or whatever, but like I start to get blurry vision when I'm just like at the point of exhaustion, and that's when I know.
I was at the gym last week doing deadlifts and then went upstairs to stretch and I met this really sweet old man named Alan. And as I'm standing there talking to him, I hear this buzzing going off in my ears and these blue fractals are covering my field of vision. And I'm like, I'm gonna puke or faint in front of this guy, and I'm not thrilled about that.
Why do you think
But
that
no,
was? Where do you think that was coming from?
I think that's just exhaustion. But then maybe that exhaustion opens up some other sensory capabilities, you
It
know.
definitely has effects, yes. Okay. So what are you envisioning? Your vision? I mean, I think that's interesting because um you are on this vision for firescaping. Should we talk too much? Should we talk about that? Are we trying to keep some of it on the DL?
No, there's
Uh,
no DL, and it's probably good to mention it, but I want to put it in the context of vision, and then I want to ask you some things too.
okay.
And so I can give a brief overview of firescaping and then try and tie it back to vision. Um,
Yes, I like that.
so I saw something years ago that other people haven't seen, which is that succulent plants don't burn. They just cook or boil. They don't
Mm-hmm.
ignite.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking in all places where the climate permits, like Mediterranean or arid zones, you plant succulents around properties that act as fire breaks. They're living, they're holding water, and they're beautiful. So I've been seeing that for years and am pursuing actions in my life to make
And
that vision a reality.
and I
But
can confirm that you were talking about this when I knew you. What 2019 was when I first heard you talk about this, or 2020? Definitely 2020, maybe 2019.
maybe 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been on my mind, and it's not the the thought and the word and the vocabulary around it doesn't excite me. It's like closing my eyes and seeing these properties in Southern California
Mhm.
and, you know, Lebanon and Spain and Greece, like just surrounded by these plants that perform all of these functions. And so that gets me going, right? Like that vision of what could be. And I'm curious now to hear two things from you in this order. What in your life comes to mind when you think of vision in that context? And then I'm wondering if we can dissect like where those visions come from, or maybe where do they come from?
Where
But
do?
but but later, you know.
Okay. Okay. Um, I guess what comes to my mind when you talk about vision and you talk about like closing your eyes and having that dream and seeing an image of something that pleases you for your future. For me, that's I want to make movies, or maybe not even necessarily like Hollywood movies, but like for instance, I could talk quite a bit about this short film that I just saw. That someone I've been following for years on YouTube. This guy's name is Mikey Campman, and his YouTube channel is called Hello, I Am Mikey, and um he's got a couple short films on there that I found out about a couple years ago through a friend, like a friend who has a mutual friend of him. You know, friends sharing friends works. I love when things work like that. But um, this short film he just put out is called Baking and Entering, and um, it's a ridiculous farcical comedy short film about a character called the Night Chef, and Mikey plays the night chef, and he like a burglar would, he cases out houses, except instead of burglarizing them, he sneaks into their kitchen after they've gone to bed and bakes, and it's like this corny public access TV show host that he is within this fictional world. And watching it,
Okay.
I would love to do things like that. I would love to. I want to tell stories. I want to create characters. I want to perform that kind of thing. Um, I've never, obviously that's very. The financials of that are tricky, and like how to make a living that way is what's so tricky, which is why I haven't really, I don't know, explored it much. But yes, if I have visions, that those kinds of things come to mind. I mean, I do write stories. I have plenty of stories. I have many stories that I've written that no other eyes or ears have ever seen or heard. Quite a bit of what I've written is totally untapped. Uh, so how's that? What was that? What you expected? Was that?
More or less.
Mm. And
I
I
think
think,
yes.
I mean, making like proper movies would be interesting. I think, but like, I also think that the way that media is moving at this moment, like, it's not going to be necessary to get fully invested in like a Hollywood scene, and I don't think I'd fit in Hollywood anyway. So I think there's going to be opportunities there. It's just kind of a matter of building things from the ground up, which, I feel intimidated enough uploading podcasts of myself talking spontaneously. So maybe we'll get there, but
I
that's
want to continue on that thread of Hollywood because you recommended a movie to me called RRR.
Oh, okay. What about it?
It's it's a Bollywood movie
It's not
that's
Bollywood. It's
it's
Tollywood.
not Bollywood.
It's Tollywood. It's
It's
um.
Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. It's Telugu is the language. There's like Bollywood is Hindi, I think, and there's like one other major Hollywood type operation, and they're like competing film industries out of India because there's several major languages in India. Bollywood is like is Hindi is like the most prominent one, but then this second most prominent one also has a major film industry. That's all. Yeah, that's the story there. Anyway, RRR.
I appreciate you explaining that. I didn't know that. And this movie's just, it's very rare for me to sit down and watch a movie, period. But I was
Let
like,
alone let alone a 3 hour movie. It's like or like 3.5 hour movie. It's like
I was ensnared, man. It
oh
was, it was riveting. It like got my adrenaline going. And so that was so, that was a really touching movie and story. And I wanted to tie that into what you said about Hollywood and what you've spoken to about these other countries and their film scenes where the actors are just sweating from
mm,
effort
oh yeah. That's one of the things that
compared
comes
to
that we talked about before with this movie that comes across so clearly is like how intensely involved the actors are in the filming, and they're doing their stunts, and they're singing, and they're dancing, and they're sweating, and like you can see the stains on their armpits, and like um somewhere along the lines we decided that that was like unseemly, that we wanted like thing characters that are so pretty that there's no that they're totally unrelatable, like inhuman. And yeah, and our industry, our Hollywood industry has become like so bloated and financially um beholden to financial interests, that your actor, it's like, oh, you can't have your actor perform the stunts. It's like they could break a leg, and then we're lost on our shoot. We're behind on our shoot for 6 months, and this and that, and so like the whole product comes across as like as manufactured, and you lose out on that. Anyway, yeah, that's what I thought was so one of the things that was so beautiful about RRR is how clearly it appears on screen in the film, like the investment, the personal investment that all the performers are expected. And and not only that, it doesn't look for a minute like they're put out at all. Like, it looks like they're having fun doing it. And I'd like to do that.
I hope you do.
But I think I
And I
cut you off.
wonder, no, I'm just trying to tie this together with Vision in that like those movies are stories and visions,
They are.
and they reflect the cultures that create them. I mean, this particular movie was about um, English colonial occupation of India
Mm-hmm.
amidst many, many other things, but there was that geographic context, and it just seems to me like these actors were sweating and stinky and smiling the whole time. And meanwhile, in this country, we
Mm-hmm.
have these bloated, covered in makeup, roided up Captain Americas
Mm-hmm.
fighting Game Boy zombies on planet Zog. And it's like, what what relevance does that vision have to do with this country and the people in it? Like what? What
That
story, consciously or not, is that speaking towards? Because people go and see this shit. They go and see the Avengers saga, the Marvel, and you know, if you're a comic fan, that's great, but millions and millions of people are going to see this blockbuster, and it's like, what is this vision invoking in these people?
I don't know, but I don't know, and I've asked myself the same thing because I don't watch those movies. But maybe we need to watch the movies to know. But I mean, oh yeah, and speaking of that, we're recording this. The Super Bowl's happening right now. Talk about vision. Talk about
No
like
kidding.
yeah. And I was joking with my friend Aaron on the slopes today skiing about how we're probably missing the Super Bowl crossover commercial where Flo from Progressive and the Geico Gecko somehow like collaborate, and there's the normies will go nuts. Oh my god, it's Flo and the Gecko together. Can you believe it? Geico and Progressive. Fucking that's, we're so the visions we're given by the corporate overlords are just so bland that we've got people getting excited to see Flo from Progressive. I I had a thought, but I forgot it. I lost it.
You were tracking on asking yourself why people go to see these movies, missing the Super Bowl, Flo and the Geico frog.
Geico, the freaking Geico lizards. The water's turning the Geico lizard gay. Is that? I feel like we're like 6 months out from the Geico gecko being transgender.
It could very well be. And that's another instantiation of vision and what's being conveyed with image, what's being conveyed with
Oh,
the
here's the thought I had. Isn't it interesting how our reality is literally people's like visions from the past? There's literally how many cases, how many instances do we have of some nerd reading a sci-fi novel, some engineering nerd reading a sci-fi novel or watching Star Trek or something and being like, that technology is cool. I want to figure out how to make that happen. That's literally our visions literally shape our reality. The cell phone was a Star Trek concept that some Star Trek engineer nerd fan saw and thought, someone needs to invent that.
I didn't realize that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. Isn't that a powerful concept?
Who's writing the science fiction novels today that are going to inform tomorrow? Or
I don't know. Because I'm not an avid enough reader to know that.
are there even series like out under the genre of sci-fi that people are crazy about like they were Star Trek, Star Wars?
Like novels? I don't know, maybe not. But I mean, there's movie series and such, or TV series. But even then, it's like Hollywood's kind of falling to the wayside. But that's why I'm saying, like, I'd love to make short films and such, because I think like Hollywood's kind of crumbling over the weight of its own expectations, the weight of its own grandiosity, and there's gonna be that same creative impulse is still alive in people. That same that hunger for creativity. And so,
And then how do you disperse these visions that you have in these stories, right? Like,
yeah, that's the biggest thing for me, because like I said, I've written many stories, but I always feel like, what do I do with this? Do I upload this to a blog, like anyone's reading those anymore? Do I, you know, do I carve it into segments and release and upload them on via Instagram posts, in 10 post segments, when the majority of people are consuming it's hard enough to get people to pay attention to a 20-second clip. They're so conditioned to expect 3-second, 5-second catchy, currently trending audio. Do I go to open mics and surround myself with delusional nutcases, which I have attempted? I went to an open mic again, and there wasn't much to speak of about it. It wasn't like the old days at the Corner Beat, which, by the way, I don't know if our viewers know this, but Eric and I initially met at an open mic night. There used to be a weekly Thursday night open mic that happened in Denver, Colorado at the Corner Beat. And Eric worked there at the time, and I read sexually explicit poetry.
and I said, I gotta get to know this guy.
And you said, I would like to know him well.
And things were good back then, man. Like, not everybody that performed was, stellar and interesting, sharing whatever material they had. But I remember that open mic, and even during my time in my undergraduate studies, um, we'd host open mic nights at the house I was renting. And they call it like a poetry slam.
Oh, yeah.
And so those were great ways to get your stories out, because like the audiences were receptive, and
Yeah,
I don't feel like people are that way anymore generally.
it's extremely fickle. I don't know what it is, but sometimes it's just like the magic comes together, and people walk into a room and they understand, like, oh, like, things happen, interesting things happen here, I should pay attention. But being able to convey that to people is so challenging. It's such a rare phenomenon that, like, is 90% of the open mics you go to, it's just like the corner of a bar, and they stick there, you're like barely lit, and there's a bunch of drunk people playing pool, trying to like talk over you, and it's a delicate thing, man. It's a delicate thing. The vision is getting people to appreciate vision and want to be exposed to other people's vision. It's such a challenge. And I think that's what we're, in a sense, kind of working on here, what we're doing here when we speak, and just flex our idea muscles and wait and see what the response is, to try and figure out, oh, that clued into something. I got a response to that, like someone liked that, someone, and like, because, man, I feel like if I could master that, I'd be my films, that would be nothing. That's just a consequence of that, that would be a breeze. I just need more minions, is what I'm saying. I need more people willing to do my bidding.
Well, I think what comes to mind too is just as silly as this term is, but marketing, you know,
That is what marketing is, really.
you have to market your vision or visions and your stories. And it's like, first of all, what channels are available to you, you know? And it sounds like the in-person channels that you're exploring aren't fruitful or delicate. We call them delicate,
We call
right?
it. Yeah.
So if that's not a route to pursue, then you have to go online. And it's like, well, where do you even start? You know,
Right.
which
And
app
then,
do
and
you
then
want to
you're
fight
on. Yeah. And
first?
then once you're online, you're filtered through whichever algorithm you've chosen to subject yourself to. Twitter, Instagram. Are you Zuck's, plaything, or are you Elon
Zuck's
Musk's,
cuck,
or huh?
Zuck's cuck,
Are you
or
zucked? Are you getting zuck cucked for the nth time? Yeah, and then they've got their delicate systems which they want to preserve the way they are, and not risk offending their advertisers. And where is the space? Where is the niche? Where is the open door that I can slither into with my visions?
well, it's like maybe if you don't know, you try every channel, you know, and see what sticks. But you gotta like try long enough to get feedback, you know, and then
Yes, yes, that's hard.
it is hard, but you just kind of gotta keep
because there's
banging your head against
because
the
there's few
wall.
things more discouraging than getting no feedback, but you always get no feedback, like, at the start of anything.
You always get no feedback at the start because you don't know what you're doing. And how many other people are putting their stupid ideas out there, you know?
Like about 6 billion, or 8 billion, or however many
How
people
many
are
people have
on the
a cell
planet.
phone?
Huh?
Yeah. How many people have a cell phone,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
And then who do you want to reach with these stories, you know? I mean, with my firescaping vision, it's like I I know what niche I need to go after, like based on climate, based on who has money and things to lose as far as land and property. It's like that's the audience I'm going after, and those are the niches I want to target, you know, in different countries. So
how do
it's
you
like,
how do you market in that field? Do you put out an ad in particular magazines? Do you uh make an Instagram profile? Do you what?
well, I think if you can, you study your audience and see what channels they're getting their input from already, right? And maybe try and utilize those. And then if you don't know that, you try everything and see what sticks, you know, up front, like ads, blogs, mailers, blah, 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 blah. All of the channels that are available to you. So then it's like, who do you want to read your stories? Who do you want to see your movies?
I don't think I know. I don't think I can know that in advance, because I don't think I think it's one of those things where it's like you never really, like, some people might wear the uniform of a creative and not have a creative thought in their mind. They just really want, they just, there's an art girl that they like and they're trying to impress her, and so they wear the uniform and they talk about what an artist they are. And then there's some people who work at a gas station who read Shakespeare. And I don't know how. It's so hard sometimes to identify who is who. It's like what are we? How do we do that? Do we? I wouldn't say don't judge a book by its cover, because I think physical manifestations, our physical bodies are manifestations of our thoughts to a great extent. I mean, obviously there's genetics and such, but also, yeah, there's so much deceit and ulterior motives to how people present themselves. Then how do we discern? How do we know where to invest our efforts?
Well, like you said, it sounds like the creative types are your ideal audience, right? People who think for
But
themselves.
yes, but actually creative people, and it's like so hard to,
Actually
yeah,
creative people.
not just artists. Like, oh yeah, I stapled a hot dog to the wall and scribbled some fucking poetry around it when I was wasted at 4 a.m. Like you
And
must,
now it's in MoMA.
huh?
And now it's featured in MoMA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh. Did we answer anything? Is there anything else we should address?
I mean, I kind of want to keep digging into what makes creative people creative and how we can find them. But maybe we're just doing that by speaking now.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Could also talk about the disguises that people wear insofar as the deceit that you mentioned, right? Like somebody can look creative or artistic, but
Mm-hmm.
deep down, often they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the gas station philosophy reading Chad.
Gas station Chad.
And nobody would have guessed it.
Yeah. I kind of, and the problem is that I much prefer people who nobody would have guessed it about, because it's like they're not doing it for the attention. They're doing it for the love. But then if I never would have guessed it, then how would I know to ever address those subjects with them? It's a oxymoron, or it's a contradiction. It's
A catch 22,
a
if you will.
yeah, yeah. So how do you be a person who advertises, who markets, who makes yourself available without being a person who's just attention seeking, or ego obsessed?
You be like Don Draper.
He's not ego obsessed or anything. What about him?
Well, there's not just something, there's a lot to Don Draper, who's one of the main characters in the series Mad Men, which I saw upon recommendation from Zach. And
Oh
if
yeah,
any
I made you
listeners
watch
haven't,
we watched it all together, right?
we did.
Not all
And
together. You were in Mexico for much of it.
I think we watched a good majority of it together.
Mm.
And
And
I can recommend it highly enough. I mean,
Mad Men is the greatest show ever written.
what
And
a
it,
story.
yeah, yeah. Is it even a story, or is it just people? It's like there's not really a plot from start to finish. There's not really like it's not a story in the same way that like the Avengers is a story where like there's a bad guy and we slay the bad guy and there's challenges along the way, but it's more just on people, powerful people, striving, ambitious people, and their visions all mixing together and clamoring for rank, jostling for rank, clamoring for position. There's so much of that, like we experience in our real lives, that makes it so compelling. What about Don Draper and his ego? Were you getting at?
Well, you had asked, how do you reach these people and share these stories without compromising who you are at your core,
That's true.
without
Yeah.
putting on a
How do you
guise yourself?
how do you advertise without becoming a brand? I don't know. How do you market yourself without becoming Flow from Progressive? You know,
Or the Geico Gecko?
or the Geico Gecko.
Well, one thing's for sure, it's probably not going to be 5 minute videos, right?
Oh,
Because, like,
you can do it. If you can make animations in 5 minutes, you can make short films in 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, I meant to say 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
You know, what can you convey in five
You can convey,
seconds?
I'm aware of all the current trending topics and content, you know?
You could
That's
say,
what you can
I'm
convey.
aware of all potentialities simultaneously.
You can just mash a ton of information together and hope that some of it somehow triggers, which is really, I think that's really the tragedy of like algorithmic thought, algorithmic it's like what we've got are people who recognize that the algorithm just picks up on like certain terms and certain audio cues and certain things of that sort, and so it's just like, let's just mash as many of those things together as is possible within a 5 second you know, dose of information.
Hey guys,
And it
like,
works, and it works, but it creates this Frankenstein's monster of information that like has no bearing to any actual vision that any kind of creative, them as a creative might have. Creativity doesn't even enter into it. It's just like, it's like gambling, it's like, what are the 5 numbers I can pick to most maximize my chances of fucking hitting it? And and yeah, there, I hope we can offer some alternative to that.
well, that's the next question. It's like, is there a way to take advantage of these biases that these algorithms produce, or do you look for alternative channels?
Maybe both. Maybe we kind of just got to try everything we can.
So we're back to hitting our head against the wall until we bleed.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean,
like that.
I don't think. Yeah. What else? What else are we gonna do? I
Have
mean,
you tried manipulating
um,
algorithms with your posts?
yeah, to an extent. I mean, like I didn't used to use hashtags at all, and then I started using them more, and I noticed more attention and stuff, and then I started posting, and then eventually, my profile just got zucked, and now, and at this point I've kind of just given up on doing that, and I make fewer posts, and I just post weird things and hope that they're weird enough that my audience resonates. But I don't. My profile isn't even shown to non. So non. You have to explicitly follow me to ever like see any of my posts or anything. It's not just gonna show up in anyone's introduction search, homepage kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe that's fine.
People aren't gonna open up the app for the first time and get their sweet danger cherry
No,
popped.
unlikely. Unlikely. They will. I mean, because I post nude photos here and there, but they will get videos of 16-year-old girls bouncing around in cheerleader outfits because somehow nudity is more sexual than 16-year-old girls bouncing around in cheerleader outfits. But
Or
it's
what?
like my posts are sexually inappropriate, but you can be sexually inappropriate, but as long as there's no nudity. And it's just I feel like we live in such a primitive idea. That's when we make these rules, it's just like it's just a matter of learning to game the system, and you can be sexual, but you can't be nude because nudity violates sexual rules. But you can't acknowledge open. And it's not like I'm not sexual. I'm not saying that, but you can't acknowledge that you're being sexual. I'm just dancing, isn't it? I'm just having a fun time. So, yeah, I mean that's the world we live in, and is that wrong? Should we do something about it? Do we have to do something about it? Is it unjust? I don't know.
What could we do about it, even? I mean, you either take advantage or you ignore. Like, what comes to mind too is on multiple occasions during our experiences with different dating apps, we've tested different photos of
Well,
ourselves, and
naturally, as everyone does.
as everyone does, to get feedback, right?
Yes, yes.
Engagement,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
any other platform. So I think both you and I have run up into the issue where we'll have a photo with our shirts off, for instance, and the photo gets flagged. And then you look at the next 50 profile photos of the next 50 women that you encounter, and all of them have one, if not more, photos of them nude minus bikini
Mm.
or underwear. It's like customary to have at least one photo showing the majority of their body. So, what is that?
Which I don't mind. I appreciate that because you gotta get an idea. But what is the idea? What were you asking?
Well, the idea is something like, how are you supposed to work around roadblocks that are imposed upon some and not others?
Yeah,
Like,
that's and it's not even. I don't even think it's sex specific. I don't think it's like this happens to men but not women. I think it's just kind of. It almost just feels like lightning. It's just like we're just ants, and one day, the rain falls and half of us get washed away without any explanation, and the other half somehow survives it. How do we cope with these things psychologically, or how do we deal with them pragmatically, or how do we
well,
what's
I think pragmatically, right? Because we're trying to share our stories and visions with the world, and we have these channels that have these inherent flaws or biases or
biases is a good
proclivities, maybe, that might run contrary to the expression of our visions.
I think yeah, I think you just keep trying, you know. I've been uploading my photos forever, and I have had fascinating, you know, relationships and emerge as a consequence of me expressing myself. It might not be, it might be not, you know, not as profitable as you'd like, or it might not be as um, reach the same attention levels of other people who put in half as much effort but are much more willing to compromise their visions for the sake of algorithmic, you know, favor. But I think you kind of just have to grind. I think you just kind of have to grind and keep trying things and have faith that your message is of value and that time is on your side. Because I think if your message has value, then time is on your side. Just inherently.
I think that's a beautiful place to conclude.
Okay, I think so too. I'm also really exhausted, and I'm like, I can't wait to go to bed at like 9:30 tonight. Skiing,
Because you
man. Look, my
see,
skis are in the
man.
background there. Man, if you've never been skiing in the Colorado Rockies, there's a reason people come from all over the world to do it.
It kicks.
Okay. Is that all
That's all.
for this episode? Episode
Thanks for
2.
sharing
Thank you,
vision.
Eric. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Good
Good
night.
night.